What's up guys? So this is the full length video for my weekly video that I post up on my Instagram page. As I mentioned, because I'm transitioning from my cutting phase to my bulking phase this week, I thought it'd be a good time to talk about the principles of reverse dieting, explain what it is and the benefits of it. So essentially, as the name suggests, reverse dieting is the opposite of what you do when you're dieting to lose fat. So instead of slowly cutting out calories to lose weight, you're going to be bringing those calories back up to try and gain weight. Now traditionally, the term reverse dieting is used by bodybuilders that are coming off a competition and then want to get onto their off season. Myself and a lot of other bodybuilders in general like to do this even if we're not competing, and we still did a cutting phase either for summer, holidays or whatever it may be, and we now want to transition onto a bulking phase. So essentially I'm going to talk about the benefits of it first, and then I'll talk about how I'm going to go about my reverse diet. So the benefits. First benefit is, when you're dieting, especially when you're doing it for a long time, your metabolism starts to slow down, takes a bit of a beating, it's not running at optimum efficiency. Same with your hormone levels, they take a bit of a beat down as well. So essentially, if we want to get everything back up to normal and do it in a healthy and natural way and get our body ticking over the way that it should be, the best way to do this is to start increasing your calories slowly, so we can have our metabolisms back running at optimum efficiency and get our hormone levels back to normal. The second benefit of doing a reverse diet when you're transitioning into a bulking phase rather than going straight into a calorie surplus is that obviously you want to protect all the hard work you did to get lean, and going straight into a surplus will likely get your body to store excess fat that we really don't want to happen, because essentially what happens when you're cutting is that you starve your body. You're not giving your body enough food, enough fuel for it to function properly. So what tends to happen if you start overeating too quick is all the excess, they start automatically storing as fat, because your body essentially thinks that, right, well, in case you starve me again, I want to build up my storage levels so I can have excess food ready for when you starve me, so that I know that I can survive. And obviously we'd rather not happen, because as everyone knows, fat loss can be a difficult process. You put a lot of work into getting that six pack, so you don't want to lose it. And that brings me nicely on to benefit number 3, which is obviously if we try and minimize the fat that we gain during the off season, the cutting phase next time around will be a lot easier because there'll be less fat to shift. And anything that we can do to help our cutting period is obviously more than welcome, because it's not an easy time when you're hungry all the time and you have to do it for longer than you wanted to because you had a poor off season and you put on way too much fat. Now benefit number 4. And benefit number 4 is you want to be able to sustain consistent weight gain throughout the off season. Now if you were to jump straight into a calorie surplus, eventually your body would stop growing because it would just get used to the amount of food that you're giving it, and you wouldn't give it a reason to carry on growing. And if that happens too early within the bulking phase, you're going to get to a stage where you can carry on adding food into the diet, but it's going to be extremely hard for you to eat that amount of food because you went into the surplus way too early, and then your weight gain will plateau. So if you do it smart and you slowly build up your calories, I mean, it's a marathon, not a sprint, you will get consistent weight gain, and you hopefully shouldn't reach any plateaus, because you won't get to a stage where you physically can't add any more food into your diet plan and you can't eat that much food. Next up, how do you do it? Right, there's a few ways of doing it, and I think a lot of people, what they tend to do, especially if they've been in a calorie deficit that's been extremely restricted and been really, really high, a lot of people tend to jump straight back up to their maintenance for the first week of their off season. I don't like doing that because, as I mentioned earlier, I find that my body tends to store a lot of that food as fat straight off the bat because it doesn't want me to starve it again and not have any storage for it to feed off. So what I like to do, as painful as it is and essentially you're prolonging the cut because you'll be in a calorie deficit for another few weeks, maybe over a month before you get into maintenance level calories, is to just slowly build it up every week until I hit maintenance, and then I'll carry on, and then I'll be in a surplus and I can start gaining some proper weight. That approach will obviously take a little bit longer than the people that jump straight up to maintenance, or even some people jump straight into just a slight surplus to get things rolling. That way we're minimizing fat gains and we're purely aiming to try and put on as much lean mass as possible with minimal fat gains. Now, don't get me wrong, that approach, you're still going to gain some excess fat, and that's inevitable when you're in a calorie surplus, because after your body's used the excess to repair and build your muscles and it hasn't been excreted from the body, it's got nowhere else to go, it's going to get stored as fat. I learnt a little while back that as frustrating as it is to start getting fluffy and lose your definition, you just have to embrace it, because there's no use fretting over it, because there's literally nothing you can do about it. Now, by how much do I increase my calories starting off the bulk? Right, there's a few different ways of doing this, but there's two ways that I recommend doing it, and the variations between the two are purely down to whether you struggle to put on weight or whether you put on weight just by simply looking at food. So I'm a hard gainer, I struggle to put on weight to save my life, but cutting, I can lose weight just by not thinking about food for 5 minutes, and I probably would have lost a kilo. So there's two different approaches you can take to your calorie increases, and it's what's referred to as an aggressive reverse diet or a slow and steady. So I'm going to go aggressive because I know that my body can handle it. So generally what aggressive increases would be for me would be 10% increase in carb and a 10% increase in fats. Now I haven't mentioned protein, because I find that regardless of whether I'm bulking or I'm cutting, my protein I'll try and keep the same. Don't get me wrong, the numbers will go up and down depending on whether I'm bulking or not, but the extra protein, or the protein that gets lost, will be coming from other sources such as vegetables, oats, and not what I call pure proteins, which would be your meats, your protein shakes, and all the rest of it. Now, how do you know when to continue increasing your calories? So the rule of thumb generally is that you want to aim for lean mass to gain no more than half a kilo to a pound a week. Now that's not Bible, you don't have to stick to that completely. You can gain less than that, it's fine, but you just don't want to gain more than that, because it's more likely going to be some fat gain in that, and in the first week that's not ideal. However, having said that, in the first week, don't be alarmed if you do gain a lot more than that, because a lot of it will be, especially if you're introducing carbs back into your diet again, where you haven't had it for a while, there will be some water retention and muscles being filled up with glycogen again, so that won't be fat gain. So generally, I'd weigh myself every week, and if I'm hitting my half kilo pound target a week, then I tend not to play around with the food and see what happens next week. And if I either don't gain any weight or I'm not happy with the amount of weight that I've put on that week, then I'll increase it the week after. Now this rule of 10% increases isn't going to be strict for the rest of the bulk. And I say that because it's going to get to a stage in my diet where I'm going to be quite comfortable with the amount of fats that I have, and I don't really want to increase those too much. So I'll just start increasing the carbs, and because naturally your carb amounts and your calories will be higher, 10% will soon equate to a couple hundred calories every week, which I think even for a hard gainer such as myself is quite a large increase. So I'll tend to, when I get to that stage when it starts hitting the 200 calorie mark increase a week, I'll bring it down to 5%, and I'll only start increasing the carbs and leave the fats alone. Right guys, so I think those are the main points. about reverse dieting, about the benefits and how you do it. I hope you found it useful. At the end of the video there's going to be links to my Instagram and Facebook page. Please guys, feel free to message me on either platform and send me some feedback or suggestions for topics for next week's video, and I'll be more than happy to make some videos touching on the subjects that you guys want.